defending Clint Capella tonight?
I mean, it's a lot of things. Because Clint is involved in so much of their action, he almost has to do two jobs at once. Whether it's the pick and roll defense, worrying about Clint as a lob threat and a roller, but then thinking about the dynamic player that's coming off the pick and roll. So it's not an easy one, but his job is to try to keep both of those guys in front of him as much as he possibly can, and then help us finish possessions also, because we know the job that Clint can do on the offensive board. So, there's a lot, and if we're going to be successful tonight, a lot of it's going to depend on him.
Tonight is the last group play game of the in-season tournament, and you're still also working guys, back into the rotation. Is there more you have to juggle as a coach, knowing, as this game winds down, tiebreakers and point differential and all of that?
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting dynamic, and you're learning a lot as you go through it. And I think the league is learning a lot as we go through it. As coaches, and I don't know if the league or players or how they'll feel about it, but we wish there was more games. So many things can happen in 4 games, but what would it look like if there were 8 games and you had a home and home with everybody in your group? So you almost feel like this, from our perspective, you feel like the sample size is too small. Things like coming into a back-to-back after one of these games. Like you lay it out there and then have to go play a back-to-back, that's difficult, right? They don't do that in the playoffs. So there's small things that we keep talking about, and the more and more you experience it, learning the point differential, all those things. It's just, again, the first time through, it is that learning, and you see some guys respond. Some guys don't like at the end of the game if you try to score, because that's still their mentality from before. So there's so many things that I think all of us are getting used to and figuring out. I think we found out that this is a hell of a thing for the league, and it's a hell of a thing for the month of November, and you see the excitement around it. So it's one of those things that, I think obviously the league has continued to dive into it and make it better, because that's what our league does. But it's definitely been exciting. It's been fun. Our guys have bought into it. So I think it's been more successful than people may have even initially thought it would be.
Chris?
JB, along those lines, feels weird not asking you a question about injuries because there is no status right now. But along those lines with the in-season tournament, how do you balance the fact that point differential matters in a big way versus the quote-unquote unwritten rules, spirit of the game, and the game situations?
I mean, again, I think those are learning processes, right? And I think where, there's unwritten rules of what happens to guys if you go and dunk the ball at the end of a game. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to come down to everybody kind of getting on the same page. And I think, from a coaching standpoint, we have to do the job of continuing to emphasize just how important it is. It becomes difficult, when you're an opposing coach in a game, let's say, and, you're down by 10 or with 2 minutes to go. The decision you make, because you don't want to get guys injured in those moments, you typically would take your guy out of the game, your guys out of the game. But understanding how those points matter, now it's, you leave your guys in, and from, again, one of the unwritten rules is, the opposing coach or the losing coach surrenders first, right? You keep your guys in until the coach that's down takes his guys out. So if he leaves his guys in, then, you'll leave your guys in, and I think you'll start to keep the competition through the 4 quarters, because you understand how important it is. But again, these are all, they're fun things and nuances that we're learning and figuring out. But again, it's just going to take all of us getting on the same page, and I think coaches can really help that.
And where you guys are in the standings, every single other team of consequence to you guys tips off at the same time tonight. Do you have somebody tonight on your bench monitoring the other teams, the other games, and what their point differential is, so that you know where you stand as it goes?
We've got a plan going into it of a number that we think we would have to get to. So we're approaching the game kind of from that standpoint, but we will be monitoring where everything else is. And again, it makes the attention to the game, but the conversations throughout the game, that completely changes what we're trying to do. We have never in the past, because there's so many different tiebreakers, you've never in game sitting there watching the score like, okay, you may see win and loss, but you're not looking at, okay, 7 points or it's 12 points, and now you've got to do, whatever the number may be. So, again, more nuance, I think more things to get excited about, like fans to dive deeper into. And again, I give the league a ton of credit because it's masterful what they've done. It's like our fans now care about what's happening in Milwaukee and Miami and, Brooklyn and New York and Charlotte, like things that, our team fans would never care about. Like, they're watching those games tonight. They're at least watching the scores, and they're driving attention to the league. So, again, I give our league a ton of credit. I think, there was skepticism kind of all around beforehand. But, like, the deeper and deeper you get into it, the more you think about just, how wonderful an idea the in-season tournament is.
What is that number you have in mind?
I'm not telling you
16?
that. I'm not telling you that.
Over
We want to win the game. Let's just leave it that way. We want to win the game. That's our job.
Tom with his AP. Speaking of numbers, this team put up some big ones last week. I know you're always, trying to gauge your defense against good offenses, what have you. Is this a good test, though?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously elite at what they do, but they do, specific things that, if you do the job, you could try to eliminate. You look at the other night against Boston, I think they shot 53 threes. 60% of their shots came from behind the three-point line. So, again, what do you have to do in order to limit those threes? Or at least make them, not good or high-quality threes. And I think that's where you spend your focus is, like, what do we do systematically and individually to take away, their biggest weapon, which is the catch and shoot or, threes that are created. So that's what we focus on. And it's not it's not a night-by-night change in what we do, but understanding the league as a whole is trying to generate threes. So putting a system in place that helps you eliminate the quality of those threes.
For a while there, you guys were giving up some big ones down the stretch of games. Has that been a point of emphasis? It seems like you've done a better job with that in recent games.
We were, again, you think about some of the losses we had here where we had leads down the stretch and ended up giving up some big ones. It's an understanding of time and score all the time. And again, it kind of, just bit us in the butt. There's situations where, our team is so ingrained in protecting the paint, but understanding, and again, it was earlier in the season, understanding like when twos matter more than threes or threes matter more than twos, and then having the discipline to do the job to take away the three-point shot. So again, it was repetition and, conversations over time, but our guys, have an understanding of it now, and hopefully we'll continue to get better at it. Thank you.
I'm Dammer right down Euclid. JB, it's been about a month since Ty's touched the floor for you guys. Do you have any update on just how he's doing and how his recovery's going?
He is, again, just recovering. They're doing, different steps with him and trying some new things, different things in order to help him. So he's doing another treatment now, and I'll let, BJ and the medical staff talk about timeline when they put all that together. But he's trying something different than just, the normal rehab to try to get him back and get him back healthy.
And you had mentioned, I don't know, a while ago that about 20 games is when he's maybe evaluate just what you have, what isn't working. Just in terms of the offense, I know we're creeping up to 20 games. We're not quite there yet, but are you happy with the product on the court so far, just based on what your goals and hopes were heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we're doing the right thing. Like, I think we're passing the ball to the open man as much as we possibly can. I think we're generating great looks for each other. We're playing a selfless brand of basketball. I think early on, we were struggling to make shots. I thought we were creating, open shots for each other. But I think you see, the offense starting to tick in the right direction. We go back to, you look at, how many assists our centers get and how many touches they're getting and what that means for our offense. So it's everybody who's involved. You take a look at the assist or the potential assist and, everybody who's involved or in the game, that category is being ticked. And I think that's for us is what's, really, really important. I think we're still, a work in progress, like understanding how you play off of more movement, more activity, less just stationary and stagnant, pick and roll sets. So again, I expect us to continue to get better. But I think our guys have the idea down, and now it's just a matter of getting the reps and the execution at it.
Last one, Tim.
Tim Alcorn, Cavs Audioverse. JB, Quinn did get about 20 games last year, but now with a full training camp, preseason, how is this Atlanta team different than it was last year, even though they bring a lot of the same guys back?
I mean, I think they're faster. They're third, I think, in the league in transition opportunities. So they're trying to create much more tempo, much more pace. Obviously they're shooting a lot of threes, but these are it's a different version. But like these are Quinn's teams. They play in a ton of space. They've got dynamic ball handlers and playmakers. Guys who put a ton of foul pressure on you. So I think you're starting to see from his days in Utah, his personality is starting to come through in this team for sure.
Okay, we'll wrap with Coach. Thanks, everybody.